Hey everybody, and welcome to season 2 of Coffee with Keira, the fun podcast where I get to chat about their cool jobs with some even cooler people. I hope you all had a wonderful holiday season 2, but I'm super excited to be filming again. And to kick off the new semester, joining me for coffee today is Molly Lawrence, an attorney from Dallas. See you inside. Good morning, Molly. Thank you for joining me for coffee again.
Hey, good morning. Thank you for inviting me again.
How's your morning been so far?
It has been a smooth morning. It's early, so nothing bad has happened yet. So, no.
Yeah, I've just been organizing my school stuff, getting ready for the day. I
Same
actually
here.
have another podcast later, so
Oh,
getting
you're a
back
busy
into
woman.
yeah, the semester started again, so getting a lot done.
I know I've said this before, but I'll say it right from the outset. I love your project and the fact that you keep interviewing people. I think it's a great skill for you and a great resource for whoever your audience is out there. So, good job.
Thank you.
Welcome.
I have green tea to drink this morning. What are you having?
I have water, same as last time. Always trying to do the water. And
Yep.
I brought my mug to show you. I think it's so adorable. I don't know if it's showing up. It's a
So
little dog
cute.
mug. Isn't it cute?
Yeah.
My show and tell moment of the day.
Yep. Well, as I've learned, your job as an attorney isn't like those dark, scary law movies. So, can you explain what your job is and where you work?
Yes, I can. So actually, my job has changed a little bit since the last time I talked with you. I'm still an attorney, thank goodness. Nothing major has happened. Um, so traditionally, I've practiced civil litigation, which means no criminal law. So the law in terms of litigation is kind of divided into civil and criminal. Criminal is when you break the law in some way, like speeding or assault, something like that, something that will put you in jail. Civil litigation, you'll never see the inside of a jail unless you really offend a judge and are held in contempt of court, but that's something else to talk about at another time. So civil litigation areas that I've practiced traditionally, premise liability. That means is if somebody gets injured or if some sort of harm occurs on a commercial property, what that is called is you have liability on the premises. So the type of law is called premises liability.
Okay.
I've practiced construction defect litigation. So let's say your family hires a contractor to install a pool in your backyard and the shell of the pool is cracked or something goes wrong in construction. That would fall under construction defect litigation.
Okay.
Other types of litigation that I've practiced, real estate law, so landlord tenant, if somebody isn't paying their rent or if something's wrong in a residential building or even a commercial building, that can fall under real estate or landlord tenant. Other types of law, medical malpractice. So let's say something goes wrong in a surgery, there's an unfortunate outcome. Breach of contract cases, there's a lot of those. So just you form an agreement and somebody doesn't hold up their end of the deal, or both people don't, or all the people involved don't, then you're gonna have a breach of contract. Yes, it's bad. So there's a lot of that out there. So there's a lot of different areas of civil litigation that I've practiced and that are out there to practice that I haven't even touched. There's a lot out there. What I do now, I just started at a new firm and now I solely practice labor and employment law. So an example of a type of employment law is, let's say somebody feels that they've been fired for a discriminatory reason, or they weren't paid their wages that they were supposed to be paid, or they want their employer to make a accommodation for a disability that they have. Those are all employment law type of cases. And as of the beginning of January, that's what I practice at my new firm.
Oh, that's exciting. So you just started there really recently, right? You were at a
Yes.
different firm last time we talked?
Yes, it's only been a couple weeks, but yes, I'm at a different place now.
Okay, because you mentioned employment law a little bit last time, but you were in commercial law past time, right?
Yes, that's correct.
So, oh, sorry.
No, you go ahead.
So if, not that anyone's done this, but if you slide down the banister at like a store and break your arm and sue the store, would that fall under commercial?
First of all, please don't do that. No
Yeah,
sliding.
yeah.
Prevention is the best cure when it comes to litigation. So if that would happen, that would fall under premises liability, which is
Okay.
more of the commercial
Yeah.
practice that I did before.
Okay. What does a typical day look like at your new firm?
In my new firm, basically the same as my old. So most litigation attorneys, our work is very computer based because everything that goes through the court system has to be written. So you write something and you submit it to the court through the computer. Not that long ago, people used to have to file their pleadings and documents at the courthouse, but now, unsurprisingly, everything's electronic. So most of my day is computer based. I do a lot of writing. There's a lot of communication between myself and other attorneys at my firm, clients, other attorneys that are opposing on the other sides of the case. You communicate with the court on a regular basis, scheduling hearings, checking court policies that differ from judge to judge. So a lot of emailing, a lot of phone calls. Excuse me. I take depositions on a regular basis, which is, I'm going to take a sip out of my dog cup because I can feel my throat. Hold on 1 second. And I want to show it off again. I take depositions, which are question and answer sessions between an attorney and either a party or a witness, somebody with relevant information to the case.
Yeah.
Sometimes when we're not in quarantine season, I'll go to courthouses and appear in person for hearings, status conferences, trials, things like that. And then sometimes, not often, but sometimes you'll have a site inspection. So let's say there's a lawsuit involving like a fire at an oil refinery. Usually all the attorneys at some point in the case will go to the oil refinery with their experts and inspect the scene of the incident. Or like we talked about before with the pool construction, if there's a construction defect, at some point you will probably, with your expert witnesses, go and inspect the site of the pool. So sometimes we have little fun field trips, but for the most part, you're in your office emailing and writing and researching the majority of the day.
So being able to write and having good grammar is very important.
Yes, is very important. It will enable you to be more successful at your job. That said, I've seen lots of attorneys out there where the writing is not what you would think maybe it should be. So there's lots of different skills that come into play as an attorney, but I would certainly say if you want to do well and kind of have an easier time in your advocacy and in your argument, being able to write well is very important in my opinion, as well as, and I think I mentioned this to you before, the ability to think through something down the line. You can't just have knee-jerk reactions where you're, firing off a response and writing something because that may come back and hurt your case later. So it's very specific, very thoughtful, and really have the analytical foresight of, okay, how is this going to play out down the road?
Yeah, just being able to think the next step ahead.
Absolutely, yes.
So for your job, is it like a typical 9 to 5 or?
Absolutely not. No, it's not a typical 9 to 5. And that's a great point that you make and something that's important for people to consider if they're thinking about becoming an attorney. First of all, there's multiple different kinds of attorneys. I typically divide it into kind of two, a transactional attorney versus a litigation attorney. So a transactional attorney you're not going to ever like argue in a courtroom. It's more about drafting documents that can be in business.
Yeah.
So from my understanding or my perspective, that sort of work is a little more manageable. I'm not saying that it's a 9 to 5 job, but there aren't as many like, oh, somebody files an emergency motion at 9 p.m. and you have to respond by 3 p.m. the next day with a beautifully organized document. But no, it's definitely not a 9 to 5 because things can happen at any time. Litigation, it's called, fire drill. So somebody files something that changes the whole case, or they've asked for an emergency, or your client told you one thing, and then we have a deposition, and suddenly there's all these other unfair to deal with in the case.
That's helpful.
And yes, so it's very time sensitive. Litigation is very time sensitive. There are filing deadlines that you cannot budge. It's not a 9 to 5 at all. And anyone who is thinking about being an attorney or a litigation attorney really needs to take that into consideration. You don't leave your work at 5 o'clock on the dot, Monday through Friday. It's a lot more time consuming than that.
Does it make it more stressful? Is that something to consider?
My attorney spin would be it makes it more exciting. But yes, litigation is often high stress for the aspect that I already mentioned, that things can happen that come out of left field and you have to deal with them right away, or just kind of the responsibility aspect of being an attorney. You are constantly working for someone else and they are placing their trust in you to handle this situation for them. So the attorney is highly impactful in the outcome of a case. So there is a good deal of stress with responsibility, with timing, as well as just the nature of litigation. It's adversarial. There is somebody fighting against you in a case at all times. So again, you always get right to the heart of the matter, Keira. I really like it. But yes, it is stressful.
Sounds exciting too.
It is exciting. I am never bored in my job, and that's something I'm very grateful for.
Yeah. Well, you sound really busy, but do you still have time for hobbies? And what are they?
I make time for them. You learn time management in any career that you're in, and certainly in being an attorney. My hobbies, I think it's important to be active, especially because my job, I'm sitting so much of the time. So I make time to work out. I also volunteer for DFW Lab Rescue. It's something that I really enjoy. So I foster Labrador retrievers that have either been pulled from a shelter or they've been surrendered for some reason, and they need a home until their permanent adoptive family comes along. And I will tell you, it's so sweet. Like, I'm a dog person to start with, but it's a really sweet experience to see these dogs kind of be rehabilitated in the home. So they come in fearful, they don't know what's happening, and then you get to love on them. So I say it's a hobby, but it's really just me sitting on the floor, like loving on some dogs every single day.
Sounds great.
It is great. It's really stress relieving. I will say that, and very rewarding. And I also bake. I like baking and cooking, so hosting people in my house, and then I'm involved in my local church as well in some care ministries.
What's one of your favorite things to bake?
Oh man. Okay, so right now I'm into this. It's called Cake by Courtney, and she has a lot of great cake recipes. So I'm learning cakes for the first time. I'm terrible at icing and frosting. It looks like a third grader made my stuff. But I typically veer towards the desserts, and then I'm trying to be more of an adult, well-rounded adult these days. So learning to make just some casseroles and just some main dishes instead of just constantly eating dessert.
Yeah, my birthday's coming up in a few days, so I have to figure out how to make a cake.
Yeah, someone should make it for you. I'll send your mom some recipes.
How many dogs have you had in your house at one time?
I think I've had 4 at one time, which was a lot of tails wagging in the house. It's just me, so I was definitely outnumbered. But I look for the more low-key kind of older dogs. A lot of people gravitate towards puppies because they're so cute and they're so, just precious.
Yeah.
But puppies have a lot of energy and a lot of willingness to cry at all hours of the day. So I tend to foster the older dogs or kind of calmer dogs. But I have had some puppies and they've been really sweet, and I've cried when they go off to their next home. So that's not to speak against puppies at all. But yes, probably about 4.
Mm-hmm. Have you always been interested in being an attorney?
No. I don't know if I should say that in case my boss watched this or something, but no, that's the truth. No, I have not. I've always been a good writer. People have always told me that I'm a good speaker, and I definitely enjoy speaking. There's a component to being an attorney that involves education, and I would say that is kind of more what I'm geared towards. I love communicating with people. That's what my major was in undergrad. But also, when you are litigating, you're educating. So you're educating the court about, okay, here are the elements of the law. Here are the facts. There's a lot of presentation and education components. You'll hear attorneys called counselors sometimes. So in movies, you might hear, that's enough, counselor, or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So what that refers to is there is a counseling component where you're kind of in an advisory capacity to your client. So if my client is a big business and we're noticing that there's a trend of a certain type of claim from their employees, or like right now, a really relevant situation is, the COVID-19 pandemic. So employers have questions, can I or should I require my employees to get vaccinated? How do I handle employee leave requests? So nothing bad has happened, but they're coming to the attorney asking for counsel. So that's where counselor comes from. So there's a lot of different aspects that draw me to it. I'm also very protective. If you are one of my people, or in grown-up terms, if you're my client, I'm drawn towards protecting and looking out for your best interest. So that is something that's suited to litigation as well.
So the whole job is not arguing with people?
No. So thank you for bringing that up. So a lot of times you will hear people, especially kind of younger people, say, I love to argue. I'm going to be an attorney. And my response would be, please don't. So I am of the opinion that you shouldn't need to shout or bicker in order to be successful in your job. I'm going to come at you and I'm going to, very confidently present the facts, the law, and my perspective on what the outcome of the case should be. I'm not going to bicker. I'm not going to yell. I'm not going to try to bully or use harassing or derogatory language. So that is kind of a misconception that you'll see in television shows, in movies, and certainly kind of the public perception is, oh, you're an attorney, you must love to argue. Like, no. And if you find there's advocacy, like you have to be willing to stick with your point in court, in a hearing, there's oral argument. So argument is relevant. However, this idea of you're just a combative person that loves to argue, you will find some of those people, but I would try to avoid them. And it's kind of like you shouldn't have to shout to get your point across.
Yeah. So as an attorney, is there like a standard promotion line, or is everyone usually at the same level?
That's a good question. There is in bigger law firms. So, sorry, I'm noticing I'm really white on the screen all of a sudden. That's interesting. I'm a ghost. So yes, in a law firm, you come in a bigger law firm, you typically come in as an associate attorney. You are fully licensed, you're fully able to practice law, but you're typically kind of doing, I don't know how to phrase this. You're doing I'll phrase it like this. There's also a partnership level. So you're an associate attorney or you're a partner or a shareholder in the firm. The partners or shareholders are usually where the business originates from. So they bring in the client. They are kind of more of the client relationship manager.
Okay.
And then the associate is doing a lot of the drafting, a lot of the kind of the groundwork to build the case. And the partner is kept informed, ideally at all stages of the case, of what the associate is doing, and they are responsible at the end of the day. They're responsible for the case, but it's a teamwork environment to a certain extent in a larger law firm. But there are attorneys who practice on their own, and so there would be a progression in terms of rank or title.
Yeah. So it just depends on the firm.
It depends on the setup that the attorney is in. And I would say definitely a first year to, even in your third or your fifth year, there's so much to learn. You're definitely still learning. Whereas a shareholder who has 15, 20 years of experience is going to be more established. But I mean, the law changes and evolves all the time. So you're always learning and keeping up with things as an attorney.
Yeah. What's some of the unexpected challenges that you face coming into this job that you didn't know about?
That's a good question. Unexpected challenges. Certainly the time management that we talked about before. I had never met an attorney before I went to law school. So I did not have any idea really of what kind of the time commitment is, and just the danger that we've talked about before with things popping up and needing to respond and all those things. So I would definitely say that challenge. That's such a good question. Here's one. So judges can really vary from court to court and from county to county and state to state. So I might have success on a certain type of motion in one county. And even if I take that exact same fact pattern, exact same argument to another county, the judge is not going to rule in my favor. So that is difficult to navigate. And I am really truth oriented, and I want justice to be done in insofar as it can in man-made courts. So that is still to this day very difficult to handle and kind of accept when okay, if I was in this judge's court, this outcome would look different. It's a tough pill to swallow.
So do you have to study the judges? I don't know if that sounds right, but
you're absolutely right. It's called the venue. So the county that you're in makes a difference. Like I already said, the state, even the judge itself. So an attorney typically researches everything. I'm researching the county, I'm researching the judge, I'm researching opposing counsel. There's a lot of things that factor into how a case is going to go.
So you also have to be good at research.
Yes. Be willing to, it's fun. It's one of the fun things is you're investigating everything. You kind of have to turn over every stone so there's no surprises, and so that you know how to handle. I'm going to approach something different in, the valley or the panhandle than I'm approaching, in a very white collar area like Collin County. I'm going to come at the case from a different perspective.
Yeah. So you're also kind of like a detective.
Yes, very much.
Yeah. So I know LSATs are an important thing for an attorney. Okay, what's the difference between an attorney and a lawyer?
I don't think that there is one.
Okay, I didn't know if I could say lawyer or not.
Attorney, lawyer, either one.
Yeah. So how was your experience with the LSATs? Were they stressful?
So LSAT, I think it's law school admission test, I think, and I hope. They were not stressful for me because I'm a good standardized test taker.
Okay.
And my heart was not set on going to law school. It was something that my father suggested to me. I was kind of job hopping. I graduated from college early. I was 21. And I had one job for 1 year and then a second job for my second year out. And then I was going to be looking for a third. And my parents were like, oh my gosh, like we want you to find a career
Yeah.
and stop job hopping. So I took the LSAT to just because my dad recommended, hey, like
Yeah.
you would get a training to look at it. And I did really well on it. I was an LSAT teacher. So because of that experience, I can say the LSAT usually is a very stressful experience for most students because when law schools are looking at you as an applicant, they're looking at your undergraduate GPA and your LSAT score. They may consider a couple of other outside things, but the base calculation comes down to LSAT score and undergraduate GPA. So it's a high pressure thing for a lot of people because of that.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if I'm legally allowed to ask this, but what's your favorite case you were on?
You're legally allowed to ask me anything. Favorite case that I was on. I've had a lot of fun and interesting cases, to be honest with you. So I don't think that I could really pick just one. And I say that not flippantly, but honestly, like really gratefully. I've gotten to do a lot of interesting things. I've gotten to help a lot of people. I've gotten a lot of great outcomes that are very rewarding. So I will say, I think before we kind of talked about favorite moment in my career. So I will slightly twist your question and say, in a way, my favorite case was what I talked about with you before of, this, I was defending an employee who was accused of taking company information improperly. And he was great to work with, just like the nicest man. Really unfortunate situation that he was in for a lot of reasons. And he texted me one day, I don't know how long the phone conversation was. He was just expressing how this case is impacting him, his marriage, his wellness really, and well-being. And then got off the call, and sometime later that afternoon or evening, he sent me a text and said, thank you so much for listening to me. It really helped. I feel so much better with you on my case, and just basically we should go get a beer, so that I can thank you once this whole case is done, just out of appreciation. And that's my job. Like, it's my job to be here for my clients and to care about them. And I absolutely care about the outcome of their cases. So he did not need to thank me, and he chose to anyway. And that really impacted me and kind of stands out as a special case in my career because of the ability to help that individual and have him feel heard and cared for and seen, and like he was in good hands.
Yeah. So it kind of goes into my next question, but what's your favorite part of the job?
Favorite part of the job is helping people. Absolutely. Litigation is stressful for everyone involved, whether that is an individual or a company, because companies and corporations are made up of people. So, and that's something that I really try. I primarily do defense work. And so what I try to communicate to people is it's kind of in the legal world, tongue in cheek, like the dark side, because people think that you're just defending faceless corporations, but within that corporation are people. So for example, for the sliding down the banister scenario that you brought up. So, okay, let's say that's against this huge multinational corporation. Oh, it doesn't matter. It's a corporation. They have tons of money. It's fine. It's fine. That's not true. What if there's a manager who is looked at as, hey, why did you allow this to happen in your store? There are employees of, hey, why weren't you properly zoning and keeping an eye on what's happening on the sales floor? So it's never a nameless, faceless situation. There's always people involved. There are always people that are impacted by litigation, and that is what I really enjoy, is the opportunity to come alongside and help kind of guide the situation towards a positive end, if possible.
Yeah. Well, if you could do over the school path you went on to get where you are, what would you recommend for someone going into this?
Absolutely. So Writing, like paying attention to your writing is certainly an important thing, and pay attention to what you gravitate towards. So I never minded writing in undergraduate, and although this was already in law school, I would choose courses that would allow me to do a huge essay for my final exam rather than a multiple choice.
Yeah.
If you're in undergrad or you're in high school and you're noticing you hate writing papers, I would say explore other career options besides being a litigation attorney, because there's so much writing. Yes, I work a lot, but because I enjoy the aspects of my job, it's not terrible to me like it would be to somebody who's like, oh my God, I have to write.
I just don't want to write. Yeah.
I don't want to write anymore. So pay attention to what you naturally gravitate towards, and that's across the board. It's something that everybody should be kind of taking inventory to figure out, what do I like to do? Because we work a huge portion of our lives. So kind of incorporate, aspects that you are naturally talented or that you enjoy. In terms of traditional school path, I am not a believer that you need to major in political science to become an attorney. I did not major in political science. I'm not sure I ever took a political science course. So that's kind of a myth, I would say, is, attorneys should be political science. What I would say I would do differently is I would take more business courses, kind of the practical skills. Accounting, learn about stocks, just kind of fill in practical information that you can apply to your everyday adult life. And I would also say this, and I don't necessarily like saying this, but it's true. If you're going to be an attorney in a big market, and what I mean by big market is if you're drawn to cities, Dallas, Chicago, obviously New York City, Washington, D.C. So if you're drawn to more of a city environment, I think you will have an easier time getting hired by firms if you do go to a school with a certain name recognition. And I do not mean, it has to be a top 10 school. But I am saying, if I had known that I was going to practice in Dallas, I probably would have gone to a Dallas law school with a good name. I went to law school out of state, and it's worked out fine, but I think I've had a harder time because the law school that I went to, it's not a thing here in Texas. So I would say, to the extent that you can, try to really think through, okay, where do I want to be? And then, because you can't, when you're 18, when you're 22, graduating college, you don't know where your life is going to go. But try to make a good, a responsible decision. And then, to the extent that you're not going to know exactly where you are geographically, if you're able to get into a better school, I would say really consider that as an investment. And I just want to emphasize again, I am not saying that you cannot go to, a totally respectable school that isn't a top school, and, you're not going to get hired unless you go to a great school. That's not true, but it still, in some markets, it is easier to get your foot in the door if you have some names on your resume as opposed to a school they've never heard of.
So would you say getting an internship is also important, or no?
I would say getting experience and exposure is important. If you can get a 6-week paid internship, great, go for it. I think that I would rather see somebody who has shown real interest, not just, hey, I have a great GPA and therefore I got this cushy internship and everything has worked out perfectly for me. I'm interested in people that are willing to work. So if I see the initiative and the diligence on somebody's resume or their letter of interest saying, I've shadowed 3 people and really gotten to see the ins and outs of their day, or just really, I've taken the initiative to contact multiple attorneys and interview them like you're doing in career fields, that means just as much to me as, hey, I've had one internship, it was 6 weeks. because in my head, I'm thinking like, well, did you sit in an office and twiddle your thumbs those 6 weeks, or did you have real experience? So yes, if you can get an internship, great. If you cannot find an internship that is 6 weeks paid, that's okay. Go the humble road of reaching out to people that are in your sphere and in your community and asking, hey, I'm just looking for some exposure. I want to learn about what you do. I have an amazing podcast where I ask people that. But if you don't have that kind of amazing project, ask your neighbors, hey, what do you do? Can I come to the office? Can I shadow you for 2 days just to get an idea? Me personally, that means every bit as much, if not more, that people have made those calls and done that as one amazing internship at a great company.
Yeah. Well, would you be interested in having an intern? Not paid.
You and only you.
Okay.
It depends, but yes, we have interns. We have an intern right here in my firm, right down the hall. So yes, most larger law firms will have summer interns, or an intern for the spring semester or whatever. But yes, most law firms will offer that.
Do you have any last words of advice for anyone who is interested in pursuing your field of work?
Yes, I do. Seriously consider the time commitment. It's a big impact that shouldn't be understated. I would also advise, don't buy into the hype or kind of the Hollywood narrative of lawyers are jerks who run around yelling and bullying and doing unethical things behind closed doors. Run away from those attorneys, please. But I mean, I really mean that seriously. Like, if you love to argue, perhaps look into why that is. But you can do this job in a civil, respectful, and respectable manner. It should not be people yelling and just being difficult for the sake of it. It should not be that way, and it doesn't have to be. And I've experienced success and seen others be very successful in a very composed, dignified way that does not involve litigating in that manner. So that's kind of my cry for world peace, so to speak, is oh my God, don't come into the legal profession and conduct yourself in such a way that's unnecessary, and it doesn't benefit anybody. You do have to be willing to be a strong advocate, but certain cases not necessary. If you want to be an attorney, hook up with somebody who is currently practicing law. Spend a couple days with them, ask these types of questions. It's an amazing profession to be in. It is one that carries a lot of responsibility, and it's one that I would never advise anyone to enter into lightly. I think you should really consider the impact of it on kind of your lifestyle and just some of the stress that comes along with it.
Well, I know I've said this before, but I really enjoyed talking to you. Your job sounds incredible.
It has incredible aspects for sure. And I've said this before, but I think you're an excellent question asker. That's an important aspect of my job. So anytime that you are interested, I would love to have you in my office.
Okay.
So thank you. And again, great job on this project that you're doing. I think it's a great resource for others, and you're doing a great job with it.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Oh, yep. Cheers.
Bye.